All right, I'm going to get started here. And let me, we have a couple of ritual things that we do. The first thing that we do at UCR is we have a land acknowledgement that we feel is pretty important. Just recognizing that we are on land that we did not, we're not the first ones to be here. Hopefully, we won't be the last ones to be here, but we at UCR would like to respectfully acknowledge and recognize our responsibility to the original and current caretakers of this land, water, and air, the Cahuilla, the Tongva, the Luiseno, and the Serrano peoples, and all of their ancestors and descendants, past, present, and future. Today, this meeting place is home to many indigenous peoples from all over the world, including UCR faculty, students, and staff, and we are very grateful to have the opportunity to live and work on these homelands. And that is something that we've sort of established as an introduction to our public events for a while now, and I'm glad to do it. And so now let me do some introductions. I am Michael Alexander. I am the Maimonides Chair in Jewish Studies at UCR, and for many years have been working with the folks at the UCR Palm Desert campus to bring Jewish studies programming out not just to the desert but to the whole region, and especially on Zoom. We're super excited that we can go beyond the region in our reach of Jewish studies programming. Specifically at UCR campus, I want to thank for many years of partnership and help and support Tamara Hedges, who's the executive director at UC Palm Desert, Agam Patel, who's the associate director and seemingly everywhere at all times. And Kelly Irwin, who has helped us as events manager in this particular instance, Maggie Downs, who has done publicizing and marketing, and a whole team at UCR Palm Desert that just does incredible work. And please, if you enjoy this presentation, please go to the website, UCR Palm Desert, and see the incredible programming that is available there, not just in Jewish studies, and also the educational classwork that can be done. There's an amazing gardening program, a creative writing program, and other programs that are really quite available and running and going strong even in the Zoom period. I also want to take some time to thank the folks, our partners at Temple Isaiah and the Jewish Community Center of Palm Springs. We have for many years at UCR had a fruitful and wonderful partnership and relationship in bringing material and programming out to the desert that straddles the border between entertaining and academic. So sometimes academic work can be entertaining. Typically, it isn't, but we try to bring you the stuff that is. And for your patience with that process, I need to thank Doug Morton, the executive director out at Temple Isaiah, Bob Fay, who's been part of the coordinating committee to get UCR and Temple Isaiah and the Jewish Community Center together for years. And especially, I'd like to welcome Rabbi Stephen Rosenberg, who I haven't yet met, but hope to have a long and fruitful relationship with. Thank you so much for partnering with us. And we will have, when we go live, we'll have events at Temple Isaiah. We hope to have other events at UCR Palm Desert. We hope to get people driving back and forth in the desert for 20 minutes, even though it seems like it's an extraordinary distance. It can be done. And so we hope to actually get folks coming together. Also, one more set of folks that I want to thank while we're doing this, which is the support of CHAS, which is at UCR, the College of Humanities, Arts, and Social Sciences. We have an extraordinary dean sitting in, Juliet McMullen from the anthropology department, who has been basically handling events and during the COVID period miraculously, and really putting UCR in a place where I think the students are getting the most that they can out of the circumstances. And I also want to thank Clyde Derrick from InChas, who is our development officer and who really has been the force to bring us all together for these kinds of events in the desert, teamed with Temple Isaiah. And so this really wouldn't happen without Clyde Derrick's work. So thank you. And now I'm going to turn to our main event, our guitarist, Dr. Peter Curtis, Professor Peter Curtis. swinger, Peter Curtis. Peter is faculty professor at Riverside City College, has been for over 10 years. He teaches in the music department. He teaches practical guitar. He teaches students how to play. Um, and as has been mentioned, we met while we were in graduate school. Before that, Peter got his bachelor's degree at the Berklee College of Music, which is really the top conservatory in the country. He then went on to get a master's degree in guitar and the history of music at Yale University, where we met. And then after that, he needed even more education and went to Indiana University and received a PhD and has been confused as a medical doctor ever since that point in time. He knows his stuff. He also can play like nobody's business, but it's kind of great to have somebody who has the capacity to play, but also the capacity to explain what's going on. And we're going to have a little taste of that tonight. Now, some of you have been at these concerts with Peter at UCR Palm Desert before. We are so honored that one of the concerts that Peter gave for us were called A Very Jewish Christmas. Turned into an album that he wrote and produced and recorded called Christmas with Your Jewish Boyfriend. And that is available for the purchase as a CD at petercurtismusic.com, which is in the chat. It's a terrific Christmas or Hanukkah gift. It's essentially the idea that Peter had was to do a concert for us with Christmas music written by Jewish composers. And it was a stunning concert. It turned into a stunning album, and it's been reviewed very widely, including Downbeat magazine, and deservedly so. Peter, since that time, has well, before that time, he put out an album with his quartet called Swing State, which is excellent and available widely. And since that time, he performed with a local, Ken Steele, of the Palm Desert area, I think octogenarian crooner. Peter and Ken Steele got together to put together an album called Steele in Love, Steele in Love. And it's as good as, Ken sings he will remind you of Perry Como as far as I'm concerned. It's just a beautiful, beautiful record and also well worth your time and also very widely reviewed. Tonight, he also, just to mention just one more thing, because Peter has a long list that I can't read or tell you about the whole thing. But he also, among those accomplishments, he also wrote and actually produced a musical that was done at Redlands University a number of years ago called Love U, like the letter U, which is a musical comedy about a college romp essentially. And that also, I think Peter has in the can to be released pretty soon as a CD. So that's all extremely exciting. Tonight's concert is a spin-off from a lot of these things that we've been doing together, and I'm so proud to be part of it. Peter is working towards potentially another album of Jewish American music. This is music from the Great American Songbook. Peter understands the history of the Great American Songbook more thoroughly than I do, so I'm going to let him do the talking. So at this point, really without further ado, let's start swinging. I am going to turn my microphone off.
Thank you very, very much, Michael, for that really overly kind and somewhat embarrassing introduction. Maybe it's because I'm Canadian, which is related to the British Empire still. I find it embarrassing to have people say nice things about me. But anyway, thank you very much. So thank you, Professor Michael Alexander. Thank you, Tamara Hedges. Just wanted to make sure I pronounced that right. Tamara Hedges from the UCR Desert Campus for having me. Thanks so much to Agam Patel and Kelly Irwin, who have done great work, tech work, putting this together. And thanks to all of you for tuning in. I am really happy to virtually return to this series. Before I start playing, I'd just like to say a little bit about tonight's program. The last 2 times I appeared on this series, I gave concerts of Christmas music by Jewish people. This year, I thought I'd need some new material. Christmas music written by Jewish songwriters is just one facet of the larger phenomenon of Jewish songwriters being a major force in American popular music from the 19-teens through the 1950s and beyond. A canon of American popular song from this period is often referred to as the Great American Songbook. It's a body of work penned by songwriters including the Gershwins, Rogers, Hart, Hammerstein, Kern, Beilin, and Arlen. Though not all of the songwriters of this period were Jewish, everyone I just mentioned was. I'm not a fan of the term Great American Songbook, as I think it leaves out too much. That said, it is a commonly used term to describe the songs of this period, the Tin Pan Alley era. This repertoire is and has been frequently performed by everyone from jazz musicians to singers as disparate as Sinatra to Rod Stewart. Speaking of Stewart, he has released 5 albums of this material called The Great American Songbook, Volumes 1 through 5. The title of this series speaks to how synonymous that term has become with this period in American popular music. So tonight, I'm going to play music from this repertoire. I have picked songs that are either specifically related to some aspect of American history or culture, as well as songs that tell us something, intentionally or otherwise, about the Jewish background of the songwriters. And the first song I'm going to play is from 1908, and I think you'll recognize it. the first slide, please? Oh. Can I get the first slide, please, Kelly? Okay, actually the third slide. So while that's coming up, that was Take Me Out to the Ball Game from, as you know, from 1908, with music by Albert von Tilzer and lyrics by Jack Norworth. Jack Norworth was not actually Jewish, but Albert von Tilzer was. Albert von Tilzer was born Jacob Gambinski. He wrote hundreds of songs, started his own publishing company, and he was the brother of a songwriter and music publisher by the name of Harry von Tilzer, who actually had a huge hit in the early 20th century with a song called Bird in a Gilded Cage. One of the lines that sticks out for me from that song is, "Her beauty was sold for an old man's gold." Old story. In any case, Harry von Tilzer also had his own publishing company, and one of his employees as a song plugger was the next person some of whose music I'd like to play, and that was, next slide, please, Irving Berlin, born Israel Beilin. And he was born in what is now Belarus. His father was a cantor. He arrived in the US at age 5, began working at 8, left school at 13. And when he was hired by Harry von Tilzer's, Aaron Gambinski's publishing company, it was as a song plugger. And the gig for song pluggers was basically to take these songs that were written by these songwriters in these publishing companies and try to get them placed in vaudeville shows and theatrical productions. So song pluggers would play these songs for impresarios and try to get them placed in these shows. Obviously, Irving Berlin went on to be unbelievably, extraordinarily successful in his own right. He wrote 1,500 songs, 20 Broadway shows, and it was once said of Irving Berlin that he has no place in American music. He is American music. I think that's overstating the case dramatically, but he was without doubt a remarkable force in 20th century American music. Can we go to the next slide, please? So the next song, the piece I'm going to play by Irving Berlin is Blue Skies from 1922, from the first talkie, the jazz singer. And I mentioned that the songs that I've chosen to play tonight are either songs that have something to do with American history or culture, or tell us something about the Jewish background of the composer. And this song does both of those things. The fact that it was in the first talking motion picture clearly relates it dramatically or directly to American culture. But there's also a certain element to the song which really tells you something about Berlin's Jewish background. And that has to do with the bridge of the song, the middle 8. So the lyrics to the middle 8 are, "Never saw the sun shining so bright." And the melody to that, the melody goes, now, usually you'd expect a song with a lyric like "Never saw the sun shining so bright" to maybe go like, but it doesn't. Moreover, if you take that little melody and change the rhythm slightly, you get this. So you can hear it almost sounds like a traditional Eastern European Freilach or Jewish melody. So anyway, here's Irving Berlin's Blue Skies from 1922. So Blue Skies with a little musical quote at the end there from Richard Rogers' Blue Moon. Can we please go to the next slide? So the next piece I'm going to play is Old Man River, music by Jerome Kern, lyrics by Oscar Hammerstein from the Broadway musical Showboat. Showboat was pretty innovative as serious integrated musical theater as opposed to light entertainment and short independent sketches as musical theater typically was prior to it. It's set 10 years after Reconstruction, deals with issues of racial injustice. And the song I'm going to play, Old Man River, was frequently performed by Paul Robeson in recitals and became something of a civil rights anthem. So here we go. So just if anybody's wondering, the way I was able to get those sort of effects that approximated a steel guitar is I'm using this guitar, which is called a B bender. And it's got this device in the back that when I pull down on the neck, it moves the B string up a whole step. It was developed by Gene Parsons, who played drums for the Byrds and was a machinist, and their then guitarist Clarence White. And they wanted to come up with a guitar that could approximate the sounds of a pedal steel. And So this is, I've got this guitar a couple of years back when working on that Jewish Christmas record. For some reason, I kept hearing silver bells with a pedal steel. So I just had to get a B bender so I could try it. Yeah, so it's become a beloved instrument of mine. Okay, moving right along. Can we please go to the next slide?
Just, I'm going to interrupt here for just a minute. The chat is going wild. I just want you to know that.
Oh,
People
that's
are
very kind.
absolutely loving it.
Oh, that's so kind. Thank you. Oh, that's Brenesli Paris, one of my students. So great to see you, Brenesli. Oh, this is so nice. I'm so touched. Thank you. And Scott, that I will sing something. Thank you, Scott. Okay, the next song I'm going to play though first is from 1929. I've arranged these songs chronologically, so I'm going really through the first half of this tonight's program really goes through the first half of the 20th century. So this song is "Happy Days Are Here Again" from 1929. It was the theme song of FDR's 1932 presidential campaign. And it's interesting to me because Happy Days were most definitely not there again when the song was the theme song to the campaign. And even if they were, which they weren't, when you've got a song that's called Happy Days Are Here Again, it immediately brings to mind that the period before was not happy. And I'll try to reflect that in the way that I play the song. But a couple of words about it. The lyrics are by Jack Yellen and music by Milton Ager. Yellen wrote over 200 popular songs. And though born in Poland, he wrote "Are You From Dixie? 'Cause I'm from Dixie Too," and "Alabama Jubilee," both of which were vaudeville numbers that sort of were parodic of the South and probably owed more than I think most of us would like to acknowledge. They probably owed more to the tradition of minstrelsy, but another story for another time. So yeah, I just love the fact that this guy born in Poland who escaped pogroms ended up writing "Are You From Dixie? Because I'm from Dixie Too," which maybe he was from southern Poland. Anyway, and the music is by Mitchell Ager, who also wrote "Big Bad Bill is Sweet William Now." So here we go. Yeah, and interesting that this song was after the disastrous presidency of a businessman turned politician. Okay, thank you very much. Can we just please go to the next slide? Thank you. After Happy Days Are Here Again, please. Okay, so Brother Can You Spare a Dime from 1932, music by Jay Gorney and lyrics by Yip Harburg. It was from the 1932 Revue Americana. Gorney was born Abraham Jacob Gornetsky from Bialystok, Russia. He left after pogroms. And he collaborated with Harburg until Harburg started collaborating with Gorney's wife on other matters. However, Harburg eventually married the woman who had been married to Gorney. So anyway, their songwriting partnership didn't last for obvious reasons. Yip Harburg went to the same high school as Ira Gershwin, and apparently they bonded over their love of Gilbert and Sullivan, which I find kind of interesting. Some of his other songs include It's Only a Paper Moon and April in Paris. He also wrote all the lyrics for The Wizard of Oz. He was an atheist, a socialist, blacklisted by McCarthy. This song was extremely well received after it appeared in Americana, got a very big rave review in the New York Times as being a song that really represented the zeitgeist in a way that a lot of popular music from the time did not, as is evidenced by Happy Days Are Here Again, or On the Sunny Side of the Street, which was also contemporaneous. And a couple of interesting things about the song. Well, there's a few interesting things I'd like to talk about with this song. But you know what? I think I'll play it first and talk about it after. How's the mix of guitar and voice, Professor Alexander?
The voice is not up there.
Okay. How about now?
You seem to have had the microphone higher before. Is that
okay,
possible?
hang on. How about now?
The voice is good.
And the guitar?
Folks
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
You're making me swoon.
Happy birthday, Agam Patal. Happy birthday to you.
I think that'll do it.
All right, cool. They used to tell me I was building a dream, and so I followed the mob. When there was earth to plow or guns to bear, I was always there, right on the job. They used to tell me I was building a dream with peace and glory ahead. Why should I be standing in line, just waiting for bread? Once I built a railroad, made it run, made it race against time. Once I built a railroad, now it's done. Brother, can you spare a dime? Once I built a tower up to the sun, brick and rivet and lime. Once I built a tower, now it's done. Brother, can you spare a dime? Once in khaki boots, ah gee, we looked swell, full of that Yankee Doodle-Dum. 500,000 boots went slogging through hell, and I was the kid with the drum. Oh, say, don't you remember, they called me Al. I was Al all the time. Why don't you remember, I'm your pal. brother, can you spare a dime? Oh, say, don't you remember they called me Al? I was Al all the time. Why don't you remember I'm your pal? Brother, can you spare a dime? Okay, thank you very much. I'm assuming that Michael made it a hand like his he was going to applaud. So thank you for that. Okay, a couple of things I want to share about Brother. Can you? Thank you very much. Everyone that's saying nice things, thank you. So a couple of things I want to say about Brother, Can You Spare a Dime? There is a descending chromatic line in that melody. A descending by chromatic, I mean going down in half steps. Half steps or minor seconds are the smallest interval that we have, you know, in Western music on a piano. You can get intervals in between on a guitar by like bending notes or with your voice, but on a piano, you've just got half steps as the smallest interval. So this descending line goes, hang on, I'll just put the mic here to demonstrate this. Once I built a railroad, made it run, made it race against time. So it goes down the interval of a perfect fourth. Now, since the era of the late Renaissance, beginning of the Baroque with Baroque opera, and a melodic or a intervallic pattern, I should say, spanning the distance of a perfect fourth chromatically, has been associated with death. And I'd like to just read something. I read a quote here that from Alex Ross that talks about that. He says, "In the hands of Monteverdi, it led to the lamento bass, which was well suited to the dying utterances of operatic heroes. In its most striking form, the lamento proceeded down a grand, chilly staircase of semitones or chromatic steps. You can hear this version of it in the heart-stopping final lament of Purcell's Dido and Aeneas, and in the Crucifixus from Bach's B minor Mass." So to demonstrate that, I would like to now play the opening phrase of is Paul Simon, Scott Saul, is Paul Simon's You Can Call Me Out? Shout out to Brother, Can You Spare Time? I don't know. Interesting question. I have thought about that, though. Never looked it up. So can we hear the beginning? This is from Dido and Aeneas, and this is as the protagonist is about to throw herself on a burning funeral pyre. I'm not hearing anything. Anybody hearing anything?
No, we're not hearing anything.
Okay. Well, so much for that.
Well,
Want to try one more time? See if that works. Gee, it worked so well during sound check. Well, anyway, suffice it to say, it's a chromatic line descending downward, just like in Brother, Can You Spare a Dime? And in that way, Brother, Can You Spare a Dime is kind of like Requiem for a Dream, a song that starts with, they used to tell me I was building a dream, and has this intervallic pattern associated with death. And by the end of the song, the dream's gone and he's asking for a dime. Incidentally, the idea of the chromatic descent representing death goes further. For instance, and by further, I mean later on in history. Here's another example. From the song Stairway to Heaven. So whether or not this was conscious, it's there. Anyway, moving right along. Okay, I'm going to switch guitars. So can we go to the next slide for It Ain't Necessarily So, and I'll get out my next guitar. Okay, so this is It Ain't Necessarily So from the opera Porgy and Bess by the Gershwin brothers, born Gershowitz, raised in Brooklyn. Porgy and Bess is set in the South, in particular Catfish Row in South Carolina. And this song, sung by the character Sporting Life, expresses skepticism about biblical stories. It ain't necessarily so. All of which, by the way, are Old Testament biblical stories. My friend James Fleming, who's here, I remember in high school being really excited about the line, "He made his home in that fish's abdomen," which we both thought was very funny when we were teenagers. And frankly, I still think that's funny now that I'm no longer a teenager. But one thing I'd like to say about this song that has been widely noted is that it takes a melodic motive from the most ubiquitous of Jewish prayers. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. It ain't necessarily so. It ain't necessarily so. So this song about biblical skepticism takes a melodic motive directly from Jewish liturgy. So anyway, here we go. Okay, so it ain't necessarily so. Can we go on to the next slide, please? So the next thing the next song I'd like to play is by Abel Meeropol, who is not as widely known as the other canonized songwriters on this list, but who wrote something which is was called by Time magazine the greatest song of the 20th century. Abel Meeropol was born in the Bronx, studied English at City College of New York, then went on to do an MA at Harvard before teaching high school for 17 years. And he taught at a high school in New York, and among his students was James Baldwin. He was a Communist Party member, a labor activist, as well as a screenwriter and songwriter. And the song that I'm going to play is Strange Fruit, which was first published as Bitter Fruit in a teachers union publication. And it is a song which uses the metaphor of a strange fruit to refer to the bodies of men who had been lynched in the Deep South. Southern trees bear a strange fruit. Blood on the leaves and blood at the root, black bodies swinging in the southern breeze, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees is the first verse of the song. Billie Holiday recorded it in 1939. It became a seminal recording for her. And as I said, Time called it the greatest song of the 20th century. I wouldn't dare sing it. The only person I've heard sing it as powerfully as Billie Holiday is Nina Simone. But I thought I was motivated to work on this song this past summer after the murder of George Floyd. And one thing that's interesting to me is that Abel Meeropol went on to adopt the orphan children of Julius and Ethel Rosenberg. If there's anybody here that doesn't know, Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, and a famous case from the Cold War, were tried and convicted of spying for the Soviet Union, though there has been some controversy about that. And they were both put to death for it. And so he adopted their orphan children. And interestingly to me, in terms of how the past corresponds with the present, and another resonance with this song in our present moment, is the prosecuting attorney against the Rosenbergs was Roy Cohn, who was earlier in Donald Trump's career a mentor for Donald Trump. So there's a historical connection there to our present time. So this is Strange Fruit. Okay, moving right along from the sublime to the humorous. Um, so the next song I'd like to play is Bemir Bits to Shane, with lyrics by Jacob Jacobs and music by Shalom Secunda. Shalom Secunda was a child cantor before getting into musical theater, the Yiddish theater in particular. And this was from the 1932 Yiddish language musical I Would If I Could, wherein Jake, a factory worker, fired for his union activity, falls for the factory owner's daughter. But as with the logic of musicals, of course, in the end, they end up together. The lyrics were written by Sammy Kahn and Saul Chaplin, English lyrics, with a Germanized version of the title phrase, Bemir Bitsu She, and it became a hit for the Andrews Sisters all over the world in 1937. And interestingly, it also became a hit in Nazi Germany in 1938 until they realized it was degenerate music, as they called it, because of the Jewish provenance of the composers. So then it was banned. But until they figured that out, they really liked it. So the title, Bemir Bits du Chêne, means "to me, you're beautiful." And basically, it's the same sentiment. That song was a big hit in 1937, and it's the same sentiment as another song, which was from 1937. Can we go to the next slide, please? And this is My Funny Valentine by Rodgers and Hart, which essentially says the same kind of thing. To me, you're beautiful, and which sort of implies to everyone else you might not be, or to someone else you might not be. Rodgers and Hart were both born to Jewish German immigrant parents. Hart was obviously from a literary family, was the great grandnephew of Heinrich Heine. And so this is My Funny Valentine from 1930. Well, I'm going to do a medley. And this was actually Professor Alexander's suggestion. I said to him I was going to do My Funny Valentine. And I said, because it's basically the same idea as Bemir Bitsu Shane. And he said, oh, you should do Bemir Bitsu Shane, maybe a medley with My Funny Valentine. So his wish is my command. Here is a medley of My Funny Valentine and Bemir Bitsu Shane. I'm going to switch guitars again because I'm picky like that. That sucked. I think everything's okay though, lest you fear. Oh, hang on one sec. All right, can we move on to the next slide, please? So, oh, that was the last slide. There we go. So hang on, I'm just going to adjust this mic again for this next number. Michael, how's the volume?
I think it sounds pretty good.
Okay, cool. So God Bless America by Irving Berlin, first written in 1915 while he was in the army, and it was revised in 1938 in the lead up to World War II. There is a novelty song from 1906 called When Moses with His, or When Mose, actually there's no S on Moses, that was my mistake. When Mose with His Nose Leads the Band, which is a novelty song full of Jewish stereotypes by two songwriters who are not Jewish, but there is a 6-note phrase in that song, which is exactly like God Bless America. The music writer Jody Rosen pointed that out. And he's exactly right. Unfortunately, I don't think we can. Do you think we could play that clip, or do you think that's not working? Did we get that going? No dice. All right. So here's my take on God Bless America by Irving Berlin. God bless America, land that I love. Stand by her and guide her through the night by the stars up above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans wide with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Can we please go to the next slide? Okay. Ooh. No, a little further down. Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Voted the 20th century's #1 song by the Recording Industry Association of America. Hyman Arlock, who changed his name to Harold Arlen, along with Yip Harburg, who wrote those sublime lyrics to Brother, Can You Spare a Dime? And I think it's a testimony to the power of art to express things that the author or composer did not intend. That Somewhere Over the Rainbow, a song written in 1939 at the beginning of World War II, contains the lines where troubles melt like lemon drops somewhere above the chimney tops. And, I need not say more about what chimney tops could represent given that time period. And to me, the song Somewhere Over the Rainbow is essentially like the old Jewish saying, next year in Jerusalem, somewhere over the rainbow, there's the land. It's a promised land. So I'm going to do a quick take on Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and then we'll move on. Can we move on to the next slide, please? Okay, so I'm going to do another medley of Rodgers and Hart songs. There are two songs about the same city. One is Manhattan, written in 1925 from their first big show, Garrick Gaieties, and the other is Give It Back to the Indians. And I recognize that that is not the way one should refer to the indigenous people of this continent, but it's a lyric from another time. This is historical material. And so please take the fact that I'm playing it with a grain of salt. It's not that I'm condoning the use of that word to refer to indigenous people. But the theme of the song, anyway, is apart from, frankly, one or two lines, which are kind of racist. The theme of the song is not a racist song. It's that New York is a problematic place, and we ought to give it back to the people that it was taken from. Whereas Manhattan, the earlier song, is this love song to the city. So, I mean, really, the only problematic line in "Give It Back to the Indians" is, well, it's pretty problematic, actually. Never mind. I won't go to there. It's cringy. It's really cringy. But anyway, so here is two songs into one by Rodgers and Hart, Manhattan and Give It Back to the Indians, two takes on one town. All right. Can we move on to the next slide, please? All right, so I've just got a couple more to do. Second to last is There's No Business Like Show Business. Irving Berlin from 1946 musical Annie Get Your Gun, made famous by Ethel Merman, whose real name was Ethel Zimmerman. And given her very strident nasal style of singing, it does make me wonder if she was related to another famous Jewish vocalist named Zimmerman, but I don't know. I'll have to look into that. Anyway, here's my take on There's No Business Like Show Business from 1946. Okay, and lastly, because I imagine people's patience is probably running thin. So once again, I'd like to thank Professor Michael Alexander, my old dear friend, Tamara Hedges and the UCR Desert Campus, Agam Patel and Kelly Irwin, and thanks all of you so much for coming. The last song I'd like to play tonight is Give Me You're Tired, You're Poor. And this is an excerpt from Emma Lazarus, who herself was a Sephardic Jew, from her poem, The New Colossus, a Petrarchan sonnet, which was set to music by Irving Berlin for his 1949 musical Miss Liberty. Emma Lazarus's family had deep roots in New York, though originally being of Portuguese extraction, Portuguese Jewish extraction. They were in New York from before it was part of the United States. And the New Colossus, she was a poet, a prose writer, as well as an activist for Jewish causes, especially immigration, and especially during the point where, during the great pogroms and oppression of Jews in Eastern Europe, she was a real activist for Jewish immigration. The New Colossus was written in 1883, cast in bronze in the lower level of the pedestal of the Statue of Liberty. So, and I guess for me, it represents well, there's just, especially given a lot of anti-immigrant sentiment that we've been hearing in recent years, this poem written by an activist for immigration and someone who was himself an immigrant who escaped persecution as a child, Irving Berlin, has a certain resonance, a special resonance. So give me you're tired, you're poor. Give me you're tired, you're poor. Your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send them the homeless tempest tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. Thank you very much. And I'm happy to stick around and answer a couple of questions if anybody wants to ask anything.
Yeah, we can certainly do that. This was a remarkable concert,
Oh, thank you so much.
and I think you know a needed concert. It was just absolutely stunning.
Oh, thank you.
So if folks want to ask a question or two, we do realize that it's run late, but if there is one question in the chat that we can start with from Ian Kaufman, who wondered fairly early on in the performance, how was it that you arrived to your current musical preferences? So it's sort of your background.
Honestly, I don't really know how to answer that question. How did I mean, I think music, obviously with exposure and education, one's horizons broaden. And I went to school for music. But even before that, I had a strong sense of what I liked and what I didn't like as a child, even from the time I was a kid. And I think I've maintained that much in the same way I have a strong sense of what I like and what I don't like in terms of food. I think certain preferences are just, I don't know where they come from. So I guess it's a combination of just sort of my inherent taste, exposure, environment. I guess that gets to nature or nurture, and the product of my exposure to other great musicians. I shouldn't say other great musicians. That sounded awful. To great musicians and to being educated. Someone asked me my favorite guitarist and my favorite band. I couldn't possibly name one favorite guitarist. if I was to say a favorite band, you'd have to narrow it down to genre. If it were, yeah, so, and even within genre, it would be tough. 60s rock, the Beatles. Post Beatles, Elvis Costello and the Attractions. Jazz, Thelonious Monk's quartet, or maybe Duke Ellington's big band from the 30s and 40s. I don't know. It's tough. Charlie Parker's quartet, the Mingus Workshop. I mean, it's. I'm too Catholic, no pun intended, in my taste to just pick a favorite.
Well, I think folks are basically, here's a great question to end on. What's next from David Straussberger?
Well, I've got hi, David. David was in a workshop of Love You, the musical. He played the character of Dartmouth East, who was anyway, a professor of African American studies, a white professor of African American studies. The joke being on white people appropriating Black culture, but we've taken that out of the play because it seems like it could be misinterpreted as to who is the butt of that joke, and we wouldn't want that. But anyway, what's next? I want to do a couple more records. I've got a bunch of stuff in the can that I want to record. I want to do a record of this stuff. And I had a project in 2019 where I was trying to record a song of the month that was somehow related to the month we were in. And I'd like to do a record of that stuff too. What type of B-bender is that? And it sounded amazing. Thank you. It was actually built for me by a guy in Nashville. I told him I wanted him to put a B-bender in my Telecaster because he does that. And when I told him the kind of Telecaster I had, he said that he said, don't mess with that Telecaster because it's old. So he said, I'll build you one. So anyway, he did. And his name is Forrest Lee. And Christine Gooder's here. I miss playing with you, Christine. Christine Gooder is an amazing vocalist, and she is married to Gerhard Gooder, another amazing musician. And thank you both for being here.
So let me just thank you from everybody for this amazing concert. We really do hope to see it in a CD form at some point. That would be just incredible. And folks should know that Christmas with Your Jewish Boyfriend is available and is a wonderful, wonderful gift. It's in the link here, or you go to petercurtismusic.com.
It's also on Amazon, CD Baby, all the streaming services, Apple Music, et cetera, et cetera. By the way, is that Ian Kaufman, my former student of the Ian Kaufmans? The guy who asked the question? If so, pleasure to see you, Ian. So anyway, sorry, I just wanted to direct people as to where they can get my CD.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
So, my cousin Anna's here, my student Alex, so many students. So thank my colleague and mentor, Carolyn Quinn, my significant other, Sophie's parents, my old friend, Dave D'Souza, so my cousin, Dorothy Stober. Thank you all so much for being here. And it really means a lot to me to be asked back to do this again. So thank you very much again to Tamara Hedges, my old friend, Michael Alexander, Kelly Irwin, and Agam Patel at UCR for having me.
And for our yes, and of course our partnership with Temple Isaiah, and we hope to do this live again next year, and then the next year, and the next year, and just to keep getting it better and better, because this has been a real staple in our community. It's just wonderful to have you to be swinging like that. I think that people were you had us from the beginning to the end. So thank you.
That's very kind. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks everyone for coming out tonight. And good night, everybody.